will try to handle those as well. Number 5 is networking without a system. So the key is, if you're going to network, you want to really have a system to network. So what happens is most of us network by going to a networking event. We, walk around the event. We look for people that we know, not necessarily people that we like, just people that we know. And if we don't see anyone that we know, and you guys have probably heard me say this, you do one of the 3 B's. You go to the bar, you go to the bathroom, or you go to the buffet. And so what happens is, we get, maybe we go to the bar, for example, we get a cup of courage, we walk around, we talk to a few people, we hand out a few business cards, we get a few business cards, and we either expect to get business from that, or we send people a bunch of emails and ask them if they would like to sit down and have an appointment or talk about your product or service, and for some odd reason, they don't. So anyway, networking is truly different than that. You have to have a system. So the key to networking is, if you're going to network, you need to network for strategic alliances, not for networking for clients. Because when you are networking for potential new clients, it's very obvious. People do not like the feeling of being sold. So if you use a networking event to use that for finding other alliances, other strategic alliances that have similar interests to you. In other words, they call on the same people you do, but they don't compete with you. They talk to the same people that you do. Those are usually very good strategic alliances for you. So in my opinion, you need to, when you're talking to people at a networking event, I always ask very similar questions. I ask, what do you do? How long have you been doing that? What do you like about it? Or if that's interesting, how'd you get into it? Something about their industry. So the last question I always ask is, so if I met somebody who would be a good customer of yours, a good client of yours, a good referral, who would that be? And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I do that to see the kinds of clients that they're working with and a little bit about them and how they do things. But I do it mostly to kind of see if there's a connection between us. Not necessarily a non-compete kind of connection, but a connection where that person understands how to engage. It's amazing how many people don't understand how to engage in a conversation. So you want to ask those questions, to talk to somebody who will ask you those questions back. Because when they do, they seem to also understand the alliance thing. They're not always trying to overcompensate by selling what they have, then they're really having a conversation about engaging an interest on each other's part. That's the key. So networking is very, very important for you to do, but you need to make sure that you build alliances along the way. So imagine if you had the ability to find people that were calling on the same people or similar people that you call on and have them listen for referrals for you when they're kind of out and about. And that's what you want to be able to do for them as well. So you want to be a connector. And if you had somebody listening for or asking a question potentially on what your particular product or service is, and they call you and say, hey, I think I have an introduction for you, that is so much stronger than cold calling, and so much stronger than you trying to work a networking event and build business that way. So my recommendation is, go to networking events, do not try to sell anything, and work networking for strategic alliances. Okay, so that's the number 5 biggest challenge that I hear. Number 4 is cold calling is not working. Well, cold calling, if you were, back in the 70s, if you were doing cold calling, that's what happened. People didn't have blocks on their phone. Everybody answered their home phone or their work phone. When you asked for someone, you typically got through at least a lot easier than you do today. It was a whole different environment. Today, cold calling is okay, but it's certainly not the best way to build your business. So I do think that as a part of what you do is an important thing, and I think you can cold call as a part of your overall strategy on prospecting. Because prospecting shouldn't be just cold calling. It should be potentially cold calling, networking, building strategic alliances, asking referrals of existing clients or past clients. There's a whole variety of things that you can do. So it's very important to make sure that if you're going to cold call, you do it right. Now, one of the things that I have put together is kind of like 7 steps when it comes to cold calling. And it's very important to make sure that if you're going to cold call, you follow them. And the 7 steps, I'll give them to you fairly quickly because we don't have too long, but the first one is research. If you have to have a reason for someone to call you or for you to call them, you have to have a reason why you're calling them, as opposed to just, your name is Steve Brown and I'm on the B's in my list. You really have to have a reason to call them. So you may want to call up and say something like, hi, this is Jane from ABC Company, and I'm calling you today because I read on your website or I saw in the local newspaper or I saw online or whatever that you guys do this, and because you do that, I thought it might make sense for us to have a conversation. And that, by the way, is your introduction. And then what you want to do is what I call push-pull in your introduction, which is right after that, but I don't want to assume that from what I read or what I saw that we're a good fit. So that's part of that introduction. You have to always pull back. And I think that's very, very important, guys. So when you're first calling someone, if you have to pull back and give them an opportunity to take down their defenses. They put that wall up when they hear you pushing. So it's very important to pull back. And I know that seems counterintuitive when you think about selling, but today it's very, very different. So if you talk to me in 10 years, maybe there'll be something different, but this today seems to be a little bit more effective. So the first is research. The second is your introduction with that push-pull. The third part is setting ground rules. So after you say, I'm not sure if this is going to be a fit or not, what I thought we would do, spend a couple of minutes, ask each other a few questions, and see if there is something that makes sense for us to continue talking about. If there's not, that's okay. All we did was waste a few minutes, and maybe I can point you in a different direction. And if there is, then we can make a decision on what our next step is. So those are setting ground rules. Ground rules are the third step. And that's very important to do. So in my opinion, setting ground rules is one of the most important things you can do in sales, period. It's only about 20 or 30 seconds, but it really sets the stage for the rest of the conversation. And when we get somebody on this phone, especially a decision maker or somebody that we wanted to get on the phone, we are so excited that we almost talk over ourselves to get information out. A lot of us go with the old adage, let me say as much as I can so I can talk and he can hear me before he or she hangs up the phone. Well, I think you need to stop doing that. You can grab their attention if you do it right up front. So that's the third step. The fourth step is ask questions. And what you want to do here is ask some specific questions, but they have to be open-ended. And the problem with the questions we ask is we tend to ask questions here that are pre-qualifying them. What I often hear is people ask questions like, when are you looking to, change this project? What is your budget for it? Are you the only decision maker? Well, those questions are questions that are important to us, but they're not going to get them interested. So you have to ask questions up front that are going to have some sort of an interest. For example, when I did see on your website that you have a new, ABC product, talk to me a little bit about that. Or, what prompted you guys to start that part of your business, or have a product like that. Something like that to get them talking. It has to be specific about maybe what you called about, because if you ask too big of a question, like tell me your goals in the next 5 years, if you do that to me and you tell me it's a cold call and you tell me it's going to be a few minutes, I'm going to hang up on you. So you have to be specific, but you have to be open-ended to get them engaged. When people are engaged, they're starting to talk. And when people are starting to talk, they're starting to go more on the buying side than the being sold to side. So that's important. So the next part of cold calling is after you ask those questions, You summarize what you heard them say. You said this was the reason you engaged in that product. This is what you're trying to achieve with it. This is why you thought it would work with the other set of products or services that you have. So you summarize that. And at the end of the summary, you say, look, from what you've said, it sounds like we should possibly get together and talk further. What do you think? And you only say that if it makes sense. If it doesn't, then you bring it to a no. But if it does, you ask them if it makes sense to get together. And then when you're going to do that, you're setting a clear next step. You don't say, I'm going to be in your area, is Tuesday or Thursday better? Like, really, just shoot me if you guys use those terms. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. So, it's old sales stuff. You don't want to do that. So you want to say, look, I think it makes sense for us from what you said to get together. What do you think? If they agree with you, then you set your clear next step. Then a clear next step is very specific. And what you want to say is, let's open up our calendar and find a date and time that works for the both of us where we can discuss this further. And get it on the calendar. What doesn't work is, I'll call you Monday, I'll call you next week. That doesn't work. It's got to be on both people's calendar. And today, we're so sophisticated with our invites in our calendar. If you do set a next step, put it in the calendar and send them an invite. So all they have to do is click on it and it'll be in their calendar. So the last step here is your short recap email. So if you get a clear next step, then when you hang up the phone, if you want to send a short email that says, John, thanks so much for our conversation today. To recap, bullet. You said this and this and this were important, and you said the reason you have this particular product is you thought it would be a great marriage to these particular products that you already have. Bullet. The other reason you said you wanted to do this was blah, 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 but you're not sure how to market this because it's different. Whatever it is that they said, you put down in this recap. It's only about a paragraph long. Then at the end, you put, we set a time for next Wednesday at 9 a.m. At that time, I'm going to summarize. We'll review what we talked about today, and then I'll have some additional questions for you. We should be able to, this is something that I say, I'll say we should be able to roll up our sleeves and dig into this a little further to see if it makes sense for us to work together. If at that time it does, we can put a proposal together. If it doesn't, we walk away friends. If any of the above is incorrect, let me know. If not, I'll see you Wednesday at 9. So those are the words that I use. You certainly do not have to use my words. You want to use your own style and your own words, but that's very important. So in cold calling, that's what those steps are, and they're very important to use because you have to have a process. We tend to just flub over ourselves, and you'll hurt yourself in cold calling. Like I said, it's not the best way to build your business, but if you are going to do it, let's get better at it. Okay, so the number 3 challenge that I hear is your selling cycle is too long. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we count our selling cycle starting from the time that we attempt to talk to someone. Your selling cycle, some people say, oh, sometimes it's a couple of years. Well, it's not a couple of years. I mean, if you've tried to get to somebody and you've never gotten to them where they said, well, I'm not interested or I don't have budget, and then you start that as the selling cycle, that's not the selling cycle, guys. That's just you trying to get to them. So your selling cycle starts when you get that person to open up a little bit to you and talk to you and they have some level of need. They haven't committed to buy from you, and they haven't committed to really much of anything, but they do have a level of need. That's when your selling cycle starts, number 1. Number 2, at the end of every conversation, you need to have a clear next step. And I just described what that was. So your selling cycle, the reason it's too long, besides what I just mentioned, is the other big reason it's too long is because if we talk to somebody and then they'll say, can you send us something? Can you give us references? Can you send me to your website? What have you done to other people in my industry or whatever? So they'll ask you for information, and who knows if that information they really want or if that information is something that they're just kind of blowing you off. A popular one is, can you send me, just send me a proposal or send me pricing or whatever. So those often are excuses. So what you need to do is you need to understand what to do when they say that, and you need to understand that if they do say that, So you can say to them, I would love to send you something, but before I do that, we need to talk a little further so I can understand exactly what you need, and then let's see, because we may discover that I don't need to send you anything. We may discover that we're really not a fit here, and that's okay. Again, going to the no. The more you bring up a no, the more opportunity you have to continue the conversation, because you are now taking that sales hat off and putting a true partner or consultative hat on. So that's really important. So the selling cycle is too long. Either you start calling it in your selling cycle way too early, or if you don't get clear next steps and you send them what they're asking for and then you start stalking them. So we need to stop doing that. That's the problem with the selling cycle. Number 2 is think it over. Think it over is the number 1 problem we have in sales. Not a no, not anything else, a think it over. Because a think it over is gray. It's not black or white, it's gray. And the problem with a think it over is we really don't know what's going on. We can't make a decision, we don't know what's happening, we can't ask true questions because they say, well, let me look over your proposal, let me think it over and I'll let you know, or I'll call you or you'll call me. That's a very dangerous place to be because you are in the middle of nowhere. So to avoid think it over, you have got to set those ground rules like I talked about earlier. And ground rules, you have to let people know that a no is okay. It's very important to give somebody a no. I hear a lot of people say to me, when I say it may not be a fit, so we may decide it's a no, then I have some people that'll say to me, well, Greta, but they are a fit. They're perfect for us. Oh yeah? Not if they don't think so. They're not perfect for you until they see it's perfect for you. And the problem is we tend to, as salespeople, want to convince somebody that here's what we have and it's so good for you, and we've worked with so many people in your industry, and here's what we've done, and here's how we've helped you save money, save time, whatever it is. Once you do that, you're getting pushy. And when you push, that person is going to put up a wall. The most common wall they're going to put up is, let me think about it. And that is the biggest excuse you'll get, and it really does knock you down, because what are you going to do with that? So they go, well, okay, well, let me think about it. I'll let you know. And you go, It's too difficult to deal with. So you've got to take think it over out of the picture, and the way you do that is you set ground rules. Now, the number 1 challenge in all of this is we don't have a structured selling system. It's very interesting to me that in any of your businesses, and there's quite a few of you online today, and I know some of you and some of you I don't know, but some of the businesses that we have, whether it's advertising or marketing or law or accounting or selling a particular product, there's a whole bunch of different people on here. What we tend to do is when we get a customer, we have a system internally that we use with a new customer or with a client, and we go through that particular system. The problem is we often don't have a system for selling to the prospect. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think one of the reasons for that is I think a lot of you are wearing the sales hat in your organization. One, because you're an entrepreneur and you need to. That could be one of the reasons. But another reason I find is a lot of people that are wearing the sales hat are wearing the sales hat because somebody along the way said, you got a good personality, you should be in sales. And that's like the dumbest thing I ever heard. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. Do I think having a good personality and being outgoing and all that is helpful? Well, it can be, but I also know people that are a little bit more introspective and are really good listeners and don't spout out and are actually excellent salespeople. So it isn't necessarily that. What I will tell you is that having a system in selling, knowing where you are, knowing what steps you should take, will help you know where you are, will help you know what you should do next, and it gives you an opportunity if you don't get an outcome that you want, it gives you an opportunity to figure out why. Because what tends to happen is if we don't get somebody to buy from us, or after a while we're chasing them and nothing's happening, what we end up doing is blaming them. They wouldn't have bought anyway. They were just using me. They were going to say, well, I mean, you can blame all day long, but that doesn't bring any money to the bank. So if you have a selling system, it's easier for you. And believe me, guys, I struggled with that, okay? I was not a structured person. When I first started in sales, I winged it like a lot of us do because, hey, I got a great personality. People are going to love me. I can convince my friends to do anything. I'll be able to convince clients, yeah, okay, wake up, Greta. This is your dream, because that's not what happens. So once you realize that you put your personality and your style and your words into a system, if you don't memorize anything, it's none of that, but you do it your way, then you become successful. So what I painfully figured out along the way, like I was saying, is you need to have a system in selling like any other processes in your business. With a system, you're in control of the appointment. And I don't mean you take control of the appointment, but you're in control. Now, what's interesting about it is the person in control is the person who is asking the questions and speaking less. If you think about that for a minute, I know it seems like if you're talking, you're in control, but you're not. The person that is asking and doing the listening and writing notes is the person in control. So if you don't believe that, I want you to think about a conversation you have with somebody who asks you questions, then see how they direct the conversation. That person's in control. When you have a system, you can forecast when you'll close the account. You know, for most of us, if we either work for a company, if we have either a sales manager or an owner or whomever, a boss, that wants to know when something will close, and we take some estimate and go, well, you know, they really like us, and I present it, and, you know, I'd say probably in a week or so we'll know. Well, what does that mean, right? And the other thing about forecasting is if you are in your own business especially, you need to know when something's going to close, because if you don't know, it's very difficult for you to call your mortgage company and go, listen, I forecasted this thing to close, and it hasn't closed yet, but I'm feeling good about it, so give me a couple of weeks. Yeah, they don't go for that. Okay, so you need to be able to forecast when something will close, and this will help you do that. You will also have confidence in every sales interaction. Now think about the times that you know that when you spoke to somebody, you were really confident. Then often that happens right after you sell something, or if you don't really need the account or whatever, they call you and say, hey, I really want to work with you. We have a lot more confidence in those sales interactions. Well, how much better do they go? They go a lot better, because when we're confident, if we do the right things, if we don't flub all over ourselves, if we don't discount, if we do the right things, and people want to be with winners. People that are confident are winners. Last thing is, if you need to build your business through referrals. Now, like I said, I'm not saying cold calling is a terrible thing. If you have to do that as part of your business, it's fine. But the key to building your business is you need to do it through referrals. That is a huge part of what I believe in building business. If you don't know how to ask for referrals, to network, to build alliances, if you don't know how to do those things, and there's actually a way to ask for referrals that's better than just, hey, do you know somebody who needs my product? If you learn how to do that, you will be so much better at it. Now, unfortunately, the old world of selling, not that any of you guys do this, but in the old world of selling, if you get an opportunity, however you get that, maybe you get somebody on the phone and they actually pick up the phone, or if you meet somebody who says, well, we could probably use that, or whatever, if you get an opportunity, if you call them or you go see them, if you tell them how you can help, basically you spew your features and benefits, which is really old world selling and doesn't help. You present a solution, and then you follow up and follow up and follow up until they either give you a yes, a no, or they just change their phone number. So, you know, that just doesn't work anymore. We really can't do that anymore, so you have to change the way you're doing it. So, a couple of things. To be successful in sales, you need to have straight A's. The first A is attitude. You have to feel good about yourself. You have to have confidence. You have to feel good about your product, about your company, about the environment that you're selling in. So you have to basically get up most mornings, not every morning, guys, I'm not unrealistic, but most mornings, and feel good about what you're doing and about what you're selling. If you're not happy most days about getting up and going to work, get another job. It's a job, it's not life, guys. So that's the first thing, and you have to bring that to the table. That's not something anybody can teach you. The second A is activities. What are you doing every day, every week, every month to build your business? The problem with activities is we tend to do them when we believe we need to build business. Well, The problem is we tend to do that when we are feeling less, like we have less business than we need. And the problem with that is when we have less business than we need, or we don't have a lot of things coming into our sales funnel, we get nervous. So when you're doing activities and out there trying to sell people, when you are feeling a bit desperate, so you may think that's not coming across, but it does. So you have to build activities all the time. Then you have to build them in lots of different ways. So in my opinion, there's a variety of things that you should be doing with activities. Yes, you can cold call. You can go to networking events. You can build relationships. You can ask for referrals. There's a variety of things. And I also believe that it's important not only to figure out what those activities are for you, because they're going to be different for everybody. There is no magic list of activities. Whatever those are, if you need to do them, you need to follow them, and you need to be accountable for them. So if you don't have a coach, then get a partner or somebody. You need to be accountable for those activities, because it's difficult for most of us to keep ourselves accountable all the time. The third A is the approach. What are you saying and what are you doing when you're on the phone or in front of someone? And we talked a little bit about that already. Your approach needs to involve several things. It needs to give a no right up front to make that person comfortable. It needs to have a variety of good, thought-provoking questions, and not leading questions, but good, open-ended questions that you understand what you're going to do with the answers. It has to have a process that you know where you're going next. You have to have clear next steps. All of those things are part of your approach. And if you're just going in there and winging it, and I have so many people that say to me, if I can just get on front of them, I can sell them. Yeah, okay, good luck on that. If that were true, then all I would do is walk up and down the street and walk into different people's businesses. So that's obviously not true. So those are the three things that make you successful. So when you have an approach, when you have a process for selling, you have to have three positive outcomes. So guys, I want you to think about this. Every time you speak to somebody, whether they're a prospect they are a prospect either on the phone or in person, you need to get one of three positive outcomes, and they're all positive. First one is a yes, obviously. If we talk to somebody, we want to get a yes with money. I mean, that's obviously what we want to get. If we don't get a yes, another positive is a no. That's right. A positive is a no. And the reason no is a positive is because we do such a good job of avoiding no's that we get a list of excuses that actually are no's anyway. And we have to get comfortable with the idea that a no is a good thing. And by the way, if you put no out there and give no as an option, you get a lot less of them. So when you get less no's, we're in a lot better shape. So give an option of a no and let people know that it's okay. You'll get less of them, and you will get the third one, clear next steps. Again, I just explained a clear next step. Clear next step, guys, is not I'll call you next week, I'll send you something, I'll talk to you Monday. That's not what a clear next step is. Clear next step has to be equally agreed in both people, that you're going to put something down on a calendar and you have an agenda of what is going to happen when you do speak or get together. It's very, very clear. Then the reason that you have to do it that way is several. One, it's not real if it's not on both sides and they haven't agreed to a time and date. People will give you their time if they see the value in doing it. So if they won't do that, it's probably not going to stick. But another important reason is they won't put that down, if they won't stick that on their calendar and they just say, well, give me a call, catch me, I'm usually in on Mondays. If they do that, then they are not giving you the value that you think they are. And that's a very easily missed appointment. The other thing is if they'll set an appointment with you on a calendar, they see the value. And if they won't do it, then you need to ask them some questions because they don't see the value. And before you hang up that phone, you have to find out why they won't set that, why they won't set time aside for you. Very, very important. It tells you a lot of things. So that's important. So when you have a system or a process, you want to have one of those three outcomes every single time you speak to somebody. If you can't walk away without one of those three, very important. Now, That's your system. Here's the prospect system. So you see the picture of that globe? I'm going to use that as an example. So your prospect system have 4 steps in their system. You have 3, they have 4. Here's what theirs are. Ready? Lie, steal, cheat, and vanish. Those are their 4 steps. Lie, steal, cheat, vanish. So let me tell you what it sounds like. John, thanks so much for giving us a call. I know you've sent us a bunch of things and left us messages, and we're looking to redo our, I don't know, make it up, advertising budget. So we're looking to redo our advertising. So we'd like you to come over and talk to us a little bit about what you guys offer, and because I think we're really going to look to change our advertising. Okay, there's line number 1. Okay, so you go into the office and they say, hey, John, we just want to show you what we've been doing, how it's working, what our thinking is, and you look at all of those things and you say, well, you don't have, the ad is very generic, it doesn't have any, I don't know, call to action, whatever it is that you say to them, and they're basically saying, slow down, let me take notes. Well, that's the steal part. That's the part where we do what I affectionately call free consulting. Because what we do is we start telling people what they could be doing, what you should be doing, how you can help them, how you're different. We start telling them all of those things, then really all they're doing is saying, slow down, let me take notes. So I know we think that makes us smart, and we think we're showing people, how smart we are, but truly, guys, that's not what it does. So then they say to you, okay, let's go back. Why don't you put all the things that you wrote into a proposal and send it to us? We're really looking to make a change. You've made a lot of sense. So you go back and you put down all of the things that you recommend for them, the pricing, everything, and you deliver it to them, and they say, okay, we'll think it over, and we'll give you a call. Well, here's the cheat. They do call you, and they say, hey, John, this looks really good. I really like it. The problem is I like your recommendations, but things have gotten better, but they're not 100%. And, can you do any better on this money? I mean, can you sharpen the pencil just a little bit? And John goes, well, I could probably do this. So he shaves 15% off of it. And you say, and he says to you, well, is that the best you can do? And you go, yeah, that's really the best. Okay, we'll let you know. Then the last step is vanish. For all the times that you thought the world was round, no, apparently it's flat, because this person has fallen off the end of it. So you are in email, voicemail, gatekeeper, black hole. So you don't know what happened. And you call and call and call, and finally you just stop and give up. So then in this particular example, it's advertising, right? So you look back into the newspaper or the magazine that they had before, then all the recommendations that you made are now in their new ad in your competition's paper. Well, does anybody see anything like that happen in their own world? I'm assuming that you do. It happens all the time when you don't have a system, and that's a problem. So you have to have a system to fight against that. What does that look like, guys? Okay, number 1, you have to prospect properly. If you are going to prospect, you need to, number 1, have a list of different prospecting activities that you do, and that's something that I work out with my clients up front. We talk very quickly about what are the things that you need to do. Number 1, it could be, like I said before, it could be cold calling, it could be networking, it could be speaking, it could be using social media, it could be putting out articles, it could be going back to past clients and asking for referrals. There's a variety of things that you can do. There's no right or wrong, but you have to have a prospecting plan. And then you have to follow it no matter what. When you do, you track it, and every 30 days you go back and look at it and say, what's working, what's not, what's moving my sales forward, and what's not. So then you just keep tweaking it. And after about 90 days, you'll have a pretty good idea of what's working. But you can still tweak it down the road. The problem is you can't stop. You have to have a prospecting process that you are doing on a regular basis. If you are wearing the hat in your organization as well, then as you bring on clients, you get busier, fine. So you change your prospecting activities. Maybe you decrease them in certain areas, but they can't go away. Because what you do today, tomorrow, and next week, affects 2 months, 3 months, and 9 months down the road. It doesn't affect tomorrow and next week. So you've got to continue that. So when things fade off, or when clients go away, or when you need new clients, you have some foundation built. Very important. Step 2, you have to pre-qualify every call, which means you have to engage them. And I talked to you a little bit about that earlier when I talked about setting ground rules. You have to engage people on every call, but having a process to do that, like, I want to talk to you about this, like we talked about the research. I see this, this, and this, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, but I don't want to assume it makes sense for us to work together. So I thought I'd ask you some questions, learn a little bit about what you do and how you do it, and then at the end of our conversation, we can figure out if there's something here, we'll go ahead and talk further, and if there's not, maybe I can point you in a different direction. Those are my words and my style. You need to develop your own, but that part is so important. The most important part of selling is at the beginning, not at the end. What we tend to do is rush through things so we can get to the presentation, and then all you do is end up following up and following up and following up, and there's your stalking. So pre-qualify and engage them at every call is important. The third step is interview in the actual appointment. Now, sometimes we do step 2 and step 3 at the same time. And sometimes step 2 is done on the phone and step 3 is done in person or in a longer phone conversation or in Skype. It doesn't make any difference. So the point is that third step is your interview. Your interview has to have a couple of things. Number 1, you're going to recap the conversation you had before this, your pre-qualification. You're going to recap that. Number 2, you're going to ask additional questions, and these questions are going to be what I call big picture questions. They're deeper questions. They're more about the overall process. It's like a 10,000-foot view of them and their organization and what they're looking to do. So they're much more in-depth questions. They take, learning what to ask and practicing what to ask. They're very important because it brings you to what makes their money move. Okay, you want to know what makes people's money move? It's when you get deep enough here. When they can see the hot, when you can get to the hot button, the pain, the issues that they want to solve, that's how you get to them here. And you can't assume you know what they are. You have to ask. The fourth step is to recap email after that appointment. In other words, when you have an appointment, if you go back and prepare some sort of a proposal or a recommendation, then you send this recap email to review exactly what happened. And the review sounds something like this. Thanks, Bob, so much for the conversation. To recap, a couple of things that we talked about. Recap 1. If you said you're putting this particular product or service into your repertoire because you want to build this side of your business, and you feel if you do that, you could build your business by 10%, which is approximately $100,000. Bullet 2. If you also felt that building your referral business was important because a lot of your existing clients will also want this, so, blah, blah, blah. You just recap what they said. The other thing you're going to put in the recap is, we had a conversation about money, and we discussed what you're looking for is between this and this amount, $1,000 and $5,000 or whatever it is. It's important in that conversation to talk about money and to recap it in your email. And then the last thing is, when I come back with a recommendation, if you said if you like the recommendation and it's within the dollar amount that we discussed, this would be the next step. So you have to find out what the process is of if they like what you're recommending, what's the next step. You've got to find that out, and that goes in your recap email as well. So everything you found out in the interview, you put in the recap email. Your very last step is your recommendations. That's where you go in and present your findings. And I call it recommendations as opposed to proposal or quote, because proposal or quote really means money. Recommendations are something that you're basing on what they said they wanted. Now, you can do your recommendations at the end of the interview and the appointment. You don't have to do a recap email. If you're going to present right there, if you have the ability to do that, which some of you do, if you happen to be an estimator and you're going in and talking to somebody, you ask enough questions and you can say, here's what I estimate is the right recommendations for you. So you can do that right there. You don't have to go back and, and write an email. So it doesn't matter when you do it, but you have to have all of those things before you recommend. So your recommendations are last, And frankly, they're the least important, because if you've done this properly, everything you've done along the way from the beginning has brought you to the proper recommendations, and they're already feeling really good about getting there with you. So the most common mistakes that we make in sales without these 5 steps is thinking you can learn a new and better way in a one-day seminar. Anybody ever go to a one-day seminar, you walk away, you feel like a Tony Robbins or something, you walk away, you feel really good, you feel really motivated. If you look back 30 days later and you go, I'm back where I was. Because things don't happen that way. Things don't happen in a one-day seminar. They're fun, they're exciting, they're motivating, and that's their job. They've done that. But that's not going to change the way you do it. I think of us a lot of times as a liquid diet society. We go on a liquid diet for a while, lose 10 pounds, go to our 10-year reunion or something, and then we come back and we're either back to where we were or we're, heavier kind of thing. So this is not sales is not a one-day seminar. It's a relearning of the way you do things, and that's a process, and that takes time. Also, a common mistake is wanting to get just a few tips on a webinar at a seminar, and that'll make you feel better. Same idea here. A lot of people say, well, I got a couple of tips. Great. No, it doesn't work like that. There's not a couple of tips. You want a tip on losing weight? Work out more and eat more vegetables. How's that as a tip? But that's not going to do anything for you. If you want to do better in school, study harder. There's all sorts of things that are tips that are not going to help you make a difference. They're just little tips. So, and that's okay. By the way, if you got tips on this webinar, that's fine if that's all you want. But if you actually want to make a difference, that is not going to help you alone. The third thing is taking some ideas out of a process and not all of them. I just gave you 5 steps of a process. If you take 1 or 2 things out of there and don't do the rest of them, it's not going to help you. If you can do a great job of asking questions and learning, but you don't get a clear next step, now you're back to chasing somebody. Or you get a clear next step, but you didn't do it with some true interest on the other side, and then you go there or you call and they've canceled on you or they've forgotten. So you can't take some things out of a process. You need to take it as a whole. It's like if you went to the gym and you want to build your muscles and you want to get your body weight, your BMI down. Okay, well you can go in, but if you go on okay, I can't think of the name of the thing. See, you can tell how much I go to the gym. The thing that you walk on. If somebody knows, just type that into me. I'm feeling very stupid right now. But anyway, you can't go in and just do that and assume all those other things are going to help. So that's what happens when you are taking one thing as opposed to the whole process. And also thinking you can be accountable for yourself. I know very few people that have the ability to be accountable completely for themselves. Not very many people. So my idea at this point is why don't we go ahead and if you guys want to send me some questions in chat, we'll do that. Let me tell you a little bit about what I have if you guys are interested in it as well. Treadmill. Thank you, Denise. Treadmill. God, I can't believe I couldn't think of that. Okay, that's very simple, and I feel silly, but thank you for helping me. The treadmill. You can't go in and just go on the treadmill. You have to do a variety of things when you're in the gym. Obviously, you guys can tell I go to the gym all the time. Anyway, so what do we have here? Well, if you guys are interested, if you got the tips that you want out of this, and that's all you were looking for, then I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope those things help you. If you want to really make a difference, I have something called the Sales Success Kit, and to me, that's what's going to make a difference for you. If you want the Sales Success Kit, it's got a whole bunch of things in it. It's got CDs, it's got online training every single week, it's got me training the process, it's got a cheat sheet, it's got all sorts of things, it's got my book, everything in there. Plus, there's a monthly small group online training if you're interested in that. It's pretty cool, and I think that you'd really like it. The whole thing, the entire thing, is it's $397, so it's less than $400, and you get everything. It's jam-packed with stuff, and you get 3 months included of all the online stuff and 3 months included of small group coaching. And I won't allow any more than 8 people in that. So I am opening a new group that's going to start immediately The coaching will start the first week in January, but you'll get the package in the mail immediately if you want it, but I can only take 8 people because any more than that, it gets really tough on the small group coaching. So if anybody wants that, you can go to you can go to my website, which is schulzbusiness.com, and I'll actually send you guys this after if you'd like it, or go to my website and go to programs and go to salessuccesskit.com, and actually if you type in www.salessuccesskit.com, you'll get to it. It'll tell you all about it, and if you want it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Obviously, I'm a big girl and I take no. But if you do want it, I'm only taking 8 people from this webinar. I have 51 of you online. If somebody wants to sign up for it, that's fine. Once I hit 8, you're going to have to wait for the next one because there's just too many people online at once, and I want interaction, and I want you guys to get to know each other, and I want you guys really to be able to ask me questions and not feel like there's a million people in the group and you're afraid to ask. So that's what we're doing. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and put them in chat, and I will go ahead and go to the chat window. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I have a question. I thought I handled this, but I have a question. How long does it last? Okay, so you get immediate. There's 13 modules that come that you can get into immediately. You'll get a reminder every week. So basically, you can do them all at once, or you can do one a week, which is minimally what I recommend. And then after that, there's really a year's worth of advanced trainings that's in there as well. And you can get into every single one of them right up front in the first 3 months. So in my opinion, jump in, learn as much as you can up front, and then get out there and try it and re-look at them once a week. And sign up for the small group coaching because that's a big part of it, and that's all included. You want to get some one-on-one coaching with me, and that's as close as you'll get to one-on-one because one-on-one's pretty expensive. So that's what I recommend you do. Any other questions? Okay, is it live? It's not live. The small group coaching is live. That's with me. The other coaching is, which is me doing small pieces of training, and they're about 15, 20 minutes each. So that's what that is. Okay, guys, if you have any other questions, you can email me at greta@schulzbusiness.com. If not, go ahead and go to Sales Success Kit, and you can look that up and let me know if you're interested. Like I said, only the first 8. Thanks, guys.